opened the browser, we saw interfaces, how interfaces help us. Okay, and we open the browser and we go to some website, and on the website we need to, interact with some web element, okay, with the components of the page. All right. So I'll make a new Java project today, day 4. Right. So how do we interact with the components on the web page? Okay. Now, for that, you know, I'll create a new file known as components.txt file. It's a text file. So what are the components on the web page with which you have to interact? Okay. For example, on a web page, you will find links, buttons. Okay. You will have text feeds. You will have radio buttons. You will have checkboxes. Okay. And the you have drop down. You have the regular text on the web page. You have images. Right. So these are the general HTML components with which you have to, interact with. Now, if I open up Chrome, hold on. Yeah, I think some updation has been done in Chrome. It's not running. Just a minute. I think the exe has updated or something. Just a minute. Okay. See, this happens when the version of your Chrome updates on your PC. Okay, so you get this exception because the exe which you have downloaded has become old, right? So if I open up Chrome and hold on, right? If I open up Chrome and go to help about Google Chrome, see my version has updated. Okay, now what you will have to do is that you will have to go to selenium.dev and go to the downloads section. And this is a regular problem. All right, you expand the browsers tab and look at the Chrome. So the version is 105.5195.102. I think this one will work, 519.552. Okay, and you download the exe for this. All right, so this is the regular problem. Okay, hold on, keep driving. What's the path of drivers? Okay. So this is the older Chrome driver. I'll remove it. Okay, it's being used by the system. Okay, so I will,
Ashish,
yeah,
what is if we can stop the auto updates?
in Chrome, you cannot stop the auto update.
Okay.
In Firefox, you can, but in Chrome, it's not possible. All right. So now if you run this program, see it runs fine, right? So this is one of the issues happens in 2, 3 months once it updates in your PC. Okay. So now, anyways, so if you go to any web page, okay, for example, if I go to um, paytm.com, right? It's a website in India, right? So if you right click and view the page source, this is the page source for Paytm. This is the HTML code. Okay. Now Selenium works on this HTML code. This is actually the response from the server. All right. So in HTML, there are tags. For example, this is a H2 tag. This is a para tag. Okay, a tag open. See, this div tag is opening over here and closing over here. Between this div tag, there are other tags. A tag can be something like this, like the para tag, or a tag can have attributes. These are the attributes: class, ID. So this is a div class, whose div tag, whose class is dropdown and whose ID is FAQ dropdown. Okay, so with the help of these tags, attributes, and the page source, you go and identify the elements on the web page. Okay, right. For example, um, if I go to zoho.com, all right, and if I click on sign in, so you get a page where you have to enter the username. So if you right click on this username field, you will get the option to inspect the page. This will open. This is the page inspector. Okay, you right click on this text field and inspect. Right. And you shift to this view. This is more easier view, top to bottom view. Fine. And this is the complete page source of the application. You see this small arrow? Okay. If you click on this arrow and you move the mouse to any element, see you will have some highlighters over here. Say if I move my mouse to this logo Zoho, then this logo will be highlighted over here in the page source. This is the div tag. Fine. Div with class Zoho logo home, Zoho home. So this is actually responsible for generating the logo. If you move the mouse over this text field, this is a input tag. Text field is always an input tag. All right. So the tag name for text fields, you will always find it to be input. Okay, for this button next, the tag name is button. Okay, see the text over here is next. If I change this text to A, B, C, you can change things in this page source. Then see this gets changed to ABC, the text, which is between the span tags. Okay, so for a button, the tag name is button, or at times the tag is also input. If you talk about any link, see this is the link forgot password. Right. This is between the tag, anchor tag A. Okay. The link, a link is always having anchor tag. Okay. So you will always find all the links with the tag name A. And if you look at any text, say sign in using, this text is inside the tag known as div. Or if you look at this text, password, sign, or this text which is changing, right? This is also in a div tag. For a text, the regular text, there is no fixed tag. Sometimes it is in div, span, p means para tag. Okay, so you can be in any tag. There is no fixed tag for the regular text, but for these elements, the other ones, the tag name is fixed. Images come under the tag name of img. Okay, radio buttons and checkboxes, both of them also have the same tag input. Okay, you can check on any website. They will have the input tag. All right, and a drop down. Drop down has the tag name select. So you have these tags and these tags actually uh, these with the help of these tags you actually go and find the elements on the web page. All right, fine. Now um, let's look at this input tag. Okay, the text field. Okay, it's got an ID. If an element is having an ID or name, it is very easy to identify the element on the web page. Okay, if an element is having an ID or a name, it becomes really easy to identify the element. Right. So this is the first thing, ID and the name with which you can identify. So over here, uh, in therefore, let me add the Selenium jar files. right? And I will create a new class known as Zoho, right? And if I put up the code like this and go to this web page, right? Now, let me write the code like this in WebDriver, driver equals to new, or let me open this dynamic browsers and put up this code. All right, I will declare over here that my browser is Chrome. So Chrome will open. Right, only thing is that I will have to set the system property because my Chrome driver has updated. And we go over here. And after going on this URL, you have to interact with the input text field. Now, if you open the official website of Selenium and go to the downloads section, and you look at the API docs, and if you scroll down to the WebDriver interface, now in WebDriver interface, there is a function known as find element, which will find some web element using the given method. It returns you a web element. Now, what is web element? If you open web element, the web element is again an interface which represents an HTML element. Basically, in Selenium, everything which is present on the web page falls under web element. A button is a web element. A text box is a web element. A link is a web element. Okay, every element on the web page is a web element. Okay, and you have to basically you have to extract the web element, and this web element interface, it has got functions which you can actually fire on any element of the browser like clear, click, okay, say get the location of the element, get the size of the element, get the text. So on any element, if you have to interact with the element, then you will have to use this web element interface. And when you write the command find element, okay, so if you write over here driver dot find element command, you will get the command over here. This command will return you the web element representing that particular element. Okay, right. So how do you find the element? All right. To find the element, you will have to use a criteria. The criteria is specified by the class known as by. By is a class in Selenium, and it has got mechanisms used to locate the element within the document. Basically, how do you want to find the element? Okay, that is represented by the by class, and there are various mechanisms with which you can identify. You can identify it with ID, link text, name, partial link text. There is something known as XPath or even CSS selector, which I will tell you later on. Fine. So if you write over here driver.find element using the by class, everything in by class is static. Okay, every function in the by class is static. All right, so you can write over here by dot and you will get the mechanisms. The easiest one is by dot ID. If the element is having an ID, you are very lucky. All right. So in that case, you simply go and enter the ID. For example, for this text field, the ID is a login ID. So you specify the ID over here, login ID. So you will get the web element, which is the say the user name text field. Okay, what do you want to do with this username text field? You can do so many things. Clear will clear the value of the text field. All right, there's so many functions. If you want to type in, there is a function known as send keys. If you look at the web element interface, there is a function known as send keys in web element interface. Use this method to simulate typing into the element. Okay, so this is used to type something. All right, so if I type ABC and hit the run button, so this is opening the browser and you see that it types ABC. So it's very simple. You need to simply use driver.find element. Okay, and you extract the username. And similarly, you extract the next button using the command driver.find element. So if you look at this button, okay, this button has also got an ID, next button. So if you write over here by dot ID next button, which you extract from the page source, and you simply write next button dot click. So when you run the code, this will type in ABC and click on the next button. You see that? Right. And the best part is, if I changed my browser from Chrome to Mozilla over here in one line, right? And if I run this, the same script will run on Mozilla because we are opening the browser dynamically and all the functions in all the driver classes are same. Okay, see that it runs on Mozilla as well. It will run on Chrome as well. On all the browsers, this script is going to run. Fine. Okay. And if you look at the page source, look, the page source remains same across the browsers. Page source is the response from the server. So the IDs and all the attributes and the tag names will remain same. They will not change. Okay. And if you look at the page source, the input tag, so it's got a name known as login ID in caps. So if an element is having ID or name, it is really easy to identify. You can also write web element username equals to driver.find element by the name. And in the caps, you write login ID. So by ID or by name, it's easy to identify the elements, right? So if you run this, so you see that this is going to give you the same output. It's typing ABC, right? Okay. Now, look, to interact with one element, I am writing 2 lines of code. Okay. So what we can do is we can just write everything in one line. Driver.find element by the name login ID dot send keys ABC, or driver.find element by the ID next button dot click. So the execution starts from the left side. The web element would be extracted from left to the right, and then the send keys function will be fired on it. All right. So when you run this code, you see that. Fine. All right. Now, once this is done, now every time on the web page, the element will not be having ID or a name. Okay. For example, if you have to read the text on the web page. Okay. This text is in this tag name div. So this is not having any ID or a name. Okay. It has a class, but the class attribute, it's a very risky attribute. Although we have the option to identify the elements with the class name. You see, this is the one of the um, criterias in the by class, one of the locator strategies. Each of them is known as a locator strategy, mechanism to extract the element. We have the strategy of class name, but class name is a bit risky because multiple elements on the web page, they can have the same class. The ID is supposed to be unique. The name is supposed to be unique, but class is not supposed to be unique. Generally, the elements with the same look and feel have the same class. We will explore this class attribute more as we proceed. Okay. So if the element is, look, every element is not going to have ID or a name. So like you have XPaths or CSS selectors to extract them. And we'll tell you later on. I'll tell you later on about these. Right. And what if, there are two elements on the page having the same ID, although this should not happen. Okay, but if it happens, then what will you do if two elements on the web page have the same ID? Suppose there is an element over here and there is an element over here on the web page. Both of them have the same ID, say X. So when you write driver.find element, how will Selenium work? Look, Selenium scans the page from the left side to the right side and goes down the web page. So if there are two elements, Selenium will use the first one. Okay, if you look at the definition of in the WebDriver interface, if you look at the find element function, it's written finds the first web element. Okay, so it will use the first one, it will ignore the second one, right? If you want to use the second one, there are ways of doing that. Okay, right. So there are two things. Selenium scans the page from left to right side and goes down the bottom. And if two elements have the same ID or same name, then Selenium will use the first one with the command driver.find element. Okay, right. So there are ways to use the second or the third or all of them. Okay, I will tell you. With time, I'm going to tell you. All right. Now, now we will be talking about XPaths. Okay. Because not every element would have an ID or a name. Okay. And we will also talk about, first we'll talk about implicit weight. All right. Now, talking about implicit weight first. Suppose when I'm writing this line, I put a name or say the ID of the next button, which is not existing. So this ID will not be found, right? So when you run this code, see, immediately you will get an exception. No such element exception. That means no element has been found on the web page. Whenever you get exception, read it carefully. It will tell you the reason. Unable to find the element next button. And if you scroll down, you always get the exception stack trace. This is known as the stack trace. In stack trace, somewhere you will have your files. For example, this is my file. Zoho.java line number 26, something is wrong. If you click on this line will be highlighted. If you click on this line will be highlighted. And this is the ID of the element, right? Which is not actually there. But in real time, you would want to wait. Maybe the element takes a little while to load. Selenium throws this exception and stops the execution immediately. Within a fraction of a second of loading, you will see that you see the exception came up. Maybe you want to wait. One of the waiting ways is that you use thread.sleep 5 seconds. 5000 milliseconds you provide. So this is like this will pause the program for 5 seconds. Okay, you want to wait for the element. Okay, but this waiting strategy mandatorily pauses. What if the element is available after second? So you'll have to unnecessarily wait for 3 seconds. Using thread.sleep is not bad if you use it once or twice in the program, but if you're using it too many times, then it really slows down and the execution time increases. I also use thread.sleep at times. If you use it once or twice, it's okay, but you cannot use it every time because this will delay, right? So what you can do is we use something known as implicit wait. As soon as the browser opens, you give the command driver.manage.timeouts dot implicitly wait duration of seconds, say 20 seconds. So this is the command driver.manage.timeouts.implicitly wait. Duration of you give the time in seconds. What does this command do? This has got different advantages. First of all, this is a global command. This has just to be given once after opening the browser. Okay, and this command is applicable to all the driver.findElement commands on the web page. Okay, so wherever you have driver.findElement commands, it will be applicable to each of them. Okay, and it is dynamic. Dynamic means that it says that wait maximum 20 seconds for an element. But if the element appears before 20 seconds, if it appears in the 10th second, then use it and move forward. Don't pause the program for 20 seconds. Okay, so this will obviously introduce wait. This will wait for the element to be present on the web page. But it will wait maximum 20 seconds and then throw the error. But if the element is appearing early, maybe in the 5th second, or it is already present, so it will not wait. Okay, so when you run this code, see ABC, it's going to type in immediately because the element text field is present, but for the button, it will wait for 20 seconds. See, it's not throwing the error immediately. Okay, after 20 seconds of continuously finding the element, the exception will be thrown. So this is the advantage. With blind eye, always see now the exception comes up. Whenever you write any program after opening the browser, just give the blind eye and write this line. Always, it's a very good practice to give implicit wait after opening the browser. This command will wait for the presence of the element, but not the visibility. Visibility is also a factor in finding the elements in Selenium. I will go into visibility in detail as we go on with the training. So it will wait for the presence of the element and not the visibility. What difference does it creates, the visibility and the presence? I will tell you, but right now just understand. So if the presence, that if the element is not present, it's going to wait for the element. Right. So always give this implicit wait as soon as you open the browser, and then you fire the driver.findElement commands, and implicit wait is applicable to all the driver.findElement commands. Right. Now coming over to XPaths. All right. What are XPaths? How will you use XPaths? How will you manage XPaths? Okay, how will you build XPaths? And what are XPaths basically? Okay, look, everybody has an address. You have an address with which you are identified. And similarly, every element on a web page has an address. Okay, every element cannot have name and ID. So we use XPaths to identify. Later on, I will also tell you about CSS selectors. Okay, and there are two types of XPaths. Okay, you have a complete XPath, or it is also known as a absolute XPath. And you have a partial XPath. So in the web application, you basically have two types of XPaths. And both the types of XPaths are used in the real time. Complete XPath is used a little less. Right. So let's start with complete XPath. how it is made and how you can actually work with it. Okay, now suppose there is this website. I use it a lot in .rediff, and if you go to say the sign in page and you see this link rediff.com, the small link on the top. If I right click on this link and inspect the element, this link has got, hold on, this is the link, it's got no ID or no name, but we can surely build the XPath for this link, the complete XPath. Now in this inspector, if you hit Control F of the keyboard, you will see a small text field at the bottom. You see, this is the text field. I can type anything. So I'll start typing. See, the first tag over here is the HTML tag, which is the root of the starting point of the whole thing. Inside the HTML tag, there is a head tag and there is a body tag. You want to go inside the body tag. So you write over here /body. And inside the body tag, there are different tags. I want to go inside this div tag because my link is somewhere lying inside this div tag. It's over here. So I will write over here /div. Inside this div tag, there are three parallel division tags. You see these 1, 2, and 3. All these three division tags are inside this div tag. And you want to go inside the first one because this rediff.com link is lying in the first one. So you will write over here div bracket 1. That means go in the first one. Okay. If I write div 2, it will go in the, hold on. It will go in the second one. If I write div 3, it will go in the third one. So I want to go in the first division tag. So I'll write div 1. Under this div tag, there are again multiple division tags and my rediff.com, hold on. My rediff.com division tag is inside the first one again. Okay, so I will write again div bracket 1 and inside it, you again have two division tags parallel to each other. You want to go inside the first one, so you will write again div bracket 1 and then you have the anchor tag A. So you have to traverse down the web page like this. And this would be the complete XPath for this rediff.com link. Okay, right. So you don't have to work out the way I have worked out with the complete XPath. You can simply inspect the element. Say I have inspected rediff.com. Right click on the element and copy the full XPath, the complete XPath. You will get the option in the Chrome inspector. You right click on the element, copy full XPath, and you see that you can also investigate the elements in other browsers like Mozilla or something. In Mozilla also you can right click on the element and you get the inspector. Okay, but I don't prefer Mozilla. It's little clumsy to use. Chrome is better, Chrome Inspector. You inspect the element on one browser and the same element would also be there on the other browser. These XPaths and IDs don't change across the browsers. Okay, similarly for, we had seen, hold on, we had seen Zoho, this username field. You inspect this username field. This is the input field. It had an ID and all. But you can also take the XPath. You can copy the full XPath of this Zoho text field. So this is the full XPath. And in your program, instead of writing driver.findElement by the name, you can write driver.findElement by the XPath. You can paste this XPath dot send keys ABC. Okay, so the same command I have given, but now I'm identifying the element with the help of full XPath, the absolute XPath, instead of the name or the ID. So when you run this, the output is the same. It will be able to identify the element. Okay, and for any element, if you want to get the XPaths for this say, text sign in, you right click, copy the full XPath. Okay, and you will get it. But we don't prefer to use the complete XPath or full XPath. The reason for this is very simple. It starts from the root of the page. If something changes at the root level, say just after the first division, something has changed, then all my XPaths will change for the application. 90% of my XPaths in the application will change. So obviously, when you build a framework, you have to build it in a way that even something changes in the application, implementing that change is easy when you build some scripts. It's not that you just have to build them, you have to build them and then you have to stay with the scripts as well. The project is goes ahead after the completion. You have to build the project in such a way that it is easy to change later on. So if you use these type of XPaths, then you will have to change all the XPaths and redo all the hard work. Okay, so it's better to refrain away from complete XPaths, although complete XPaths are really accurate. When nothing works, at times I've seen complete XPaths working. All right, so you use the partial XPath at that time. Okay, so partial XPath uh, are another type of XPaths. Okay, I will talk about them tomorrow, not right now because I need time at stretch. Okay, but yes, complete XPaths are something which we try to avoid until it's not necessary. Otherwise, we use partial ones. Okay, and XPaths, they are used to uniquely identify the elements in the very accurate way. All right, there is something known as CSS selector as well, which I don't want to talk about at this stage because at least learn XPaths first and then talk about CSS selectors. All right, so we'll stop here. Okay, it's more than enough for today, partial XPaths. Right. Anyone with any questions? Anything?